Hi, welcome to the One True Divine Feminine and Psychic Investigations Tarot. And yes, I am the woman who solved her own crime using tarot cards and astrology. And today we're going to do something fun. We're going to combine both the tarot cards and the astrology to see how that mix up works. And so I've pulled cards and we're going to go around the wheel. So there's always 12 houses in astrology, and each house represents what portion of your life is going to be impacted. So we're going to go around the wheel starting with the first house. And the first house has everything to do with the self, how you project yourself out into the world, how people view you. What's your public image, for example? This is ruled by Aries. And so there's a lot of fire, a lot of spirit, etc. Now, of course, in each person's chart, what falls in your first house is unique depending upon your date and time of birth. But it's all about, again, that presentation you have out into the world. So, do you come across as somebody who's very clear and direct and truthful and honest, someone who cuts through lies and illusions and holds a sword of truth, right? And is tapped into higher energy and is, if you're somebody who likes the truth, you're probably not going to want to deal so much with people that hide behind masks, right? So, how do you present yourself to the world? That's all about the first house. And I've pulled a couple cards for each one. So here we have sort of the opposite, which is people that hide behind masks, pretend to be one thing and are completely something else. And of course, there's always the opportunity to transform that energy if you want, so that other people don't go ripping your mask off, so to speak. But it's all about being truthful, being honest, and presenting who you are to the world. So the first house. Now, the second house, which is ruled by Taurus, which is a very earthly energy, can be a very determined energy, has everything to do with resources, the earth, earthly matters. And again, though, that may not be what falls in your second house, but it's generally ruled by Taurus. So it has everything to do with your particular resources. Now, a lot of people will call this the house of earned income. But in truth, a lot of what happens down there is also what are your internal resources? Who are you on the inside? What is it that makes you tick? What helps you to pull through difficult times? What sources of energy do you draw upon to find your inner strength and inner resources? And of course, I love the star card because this is a person who draws from cosmic energy, the love and vibes and angelic wisdom of the universe to bring good things down to earth. And this person values bringing that higher knowledge and wisdom down so that it can be shared. This is also a person who taps into their intuition as a resource and tries to deal with emotions and things that are hidden behind the veil. So, in addition to just earned income, it has a lot to do with what you have inside of yourself. So, whatever planets fall into the second house are going to tell you a lot about the things that you value and will use to earn money. And here we have another card that shows a person at a marketplace dealing with a lot of people. So this can have a great deal to do with the marketplace. Actually, this is also representative of a house of worship. And the palm frond represents purity. So again, what are the things that we draw on for those resources? Of course, money is one thing. What you do for a living is another. But also, again, that inner strength and inner wisdom and resources has so much to do with your second house placement. Now, the third house is ruled generally by Gemini. It is all about communications, lower education, Also, your local neighborhood can have a lot to do with siblings and the people that live right around you. So it's like your local environment. But also, how do you learn things? How do you process information? And so, always, if you want to know how people think or process information, look to Mercury, which is ruled by Gemini, and see, what way are they most likely to learn things and want to communicate. How do they communicate? So, for example, if you have Mercury in Cancer, you're going to communicate on an emotional basis. If you have Mercury in Capricorn, you're going to want to have kind of structured communications, business deal kind of communications, just more careful communications, that sort of thing. But there's all kinds of ways, of course, people communicate. Here we have the Queen of Cups. So this would be someone who would communicate with emotions, try to sense how other people are feeling, tapping into both how she feels and how other people are feeling. As above, so below. Trying to keep smooth waters. Somebody who's tapped in emotionally would want that in a relationship, right? To keep smooth waters and to ensure that there's a good ebb and flow of emotional communications. You can also have more fiery communications, right? So when you're looking at the houses, you also have to look at the planets inside of the houses and what elements they are ruled by. And in this particular case, this has a very fiery energy to it. You can see the arrow pointing towards the sky. This could represent Sagittarius energy, seeking for the truth, for example, in communications. It could have something to do with Aries, which is very warlike. So it just depends again on what planets you have in that third house. But with Gemini, it's always about communications. And generally speaking, with Geminis, you will tend to find people who are very chit-chatty, who like to communicate on the surface of things. So they like to talk about a lot of different things, often in rapid succession. They're more surface dwellers than digging deeply. And I have at times been able to pick out Geminis in a minute or less just based upon communication style. Some of them truly stand out with how they communicate. People who have a lot of Gemini in their chart can also be very adept at social media, Facebook, Instagram, all that kind of thing. There's a big desire to communicate, especially if you have communication planets in the house of communication. And of course, also remember siblings and cousins and neighbors are also very pertinent to this house as well. Now, the fourth house has everything to do with home, has everything to do with how you live your life behind closed doors. Moon energy, very much about the homeland, mother energy, how you were raised. The influence of parental figures has very much to do with the fourth house. The fourth house is also considered to be one of the mystery houses, the fourth, eighth, and 12th. And so, yes, if you have strong placements in those houses, you may have some psychic abilities. You may be able to see behind the veil, those types of things. But it has a lot to do with how you were raised behind closed doors and what your parents were like. And that goes sometimes way back. So here we have the ancestor card. We definitely have lineages. Not only does our DNA get passed down, but attitudes and ways of upbringing get passed down. And it is also my firm belief that sometimes generational curses get passed down through families as well. And that, in my opinion, is usually it happens because there's a need for healing and people are brought together to try to heal whatever's going on. And if there is a generational curse in a family, often if you look at the charts of all the people involved, it's quite possible that you would see a repeating pattern in the planetary alignments showing this problem going down through the bloodline. Now, of course, if a family were afflicted with something like that, the goal would be to figure out how to heal that problem by digging into ancestral roots, ancestral knowledge, the wisdom that you hold within the home and the maternal bloodline, and all of the information that you can draw on from the mysteries of the universe to help heal those wounds. So, of course, the fourth house is ruled by Cancer, and Cancer does oversee the moon, the mother figure, maternal energies in a person's life. So again, look to what's going on behind closed doors. Now, the fifth house has everything to do with Leo. Leo can be a very fun, warm, vibrant energy. And the fifth house is a fun house. It's the house of romance. It's the house of things you do for fun. It's the house of children and play and just, fun stuff. And so you can, of course, run into romantic partners there. And of course, one of the questions you want to ask, are they, again, being upfront? Are they hiding things behind some kind of veil? Are their emotions in love grounded? Is it true love, or are they after something else? And of course, when you do synastry in astrology, you compare two charts, put them together, and then you can see how each person is going to affect the other. So if you start to see something like the sun or Venus falling into, say, your second house rather than your fifth, then you would know, okay, this person's really interested in me for money, right? Whereas if the big planets fell into the fifth house or the seventh house, which are more romantic and love kind of places, you would know that there's more interest in you as a person and as a love partner. Of course, children have a lot to do with play, and Leo is the sun card. So here we see children playing on a field of creativity, having a great time. They're young, they're yet to find out their sole purpose. All of the kids who were involved in this case, I hope you find your way. If you're living in a bad situation where you're not having fun, where your life is not going well, where the parenting isn't what it should be, all I can say is when you get old enough, get out and then get help as long as you need it. And don't be afraid to get help so that you can allow your sun to shine, so that you can feel whole and happy and bring good things into your life, and so that whatever things happen to you don't get passed down through the family line, and that way you can let your sun shine. And I hope God graces each and every one of your lives. And if you have gone through difficult things, how very sorry I am for you. But just know that you can heal, that you can get over the things that have happened to you, and you can go on to lead a very lovely, fun, and productive life. And tap into your heart center, which is very much Leo energy, right? Okay, the sixth house has everything to do with everyday work events. It has a lot to do with pets, actually, and also how we like to be of service to the world. It is a house ruled by Virgo. Virgo tends to like to find systems that are very, that they work. A Virgo person always looks for perfection. So sometimes they can come across rather harsh because they have very exacting ways of how they like things done. And they can sometimes seem a little bit nagging and trying to get you to be perfect in what you're doing. That's when it's kind of not showing up as well as it should. But the upbeat vibe of that is trying to harness that knowledge of creating a really perfect system so that you can do well at work, learn the skills that you need. It's a sign of craftsmanship. It's an earth sign. And, the earth signs are all about bringing in resources and finding a way to be of service to the world. And I love this card because it's all about the helping hands of the universe, right? The sixth house also has a lot to do with healing And especially with Virgo ruling over it, generally speaking, with natural healing, like herbs and good nutrition with raw vegetables and yoga and chanting and all of the things that you can do to make yourself happy, healthy, and well. And also, how can you put all of that energy of those hands to use to do good things in the world, right? With gratitude for all of the blessings that you've received in your life. And how do you help to spread that joy and blessings to other people? So, a house of service. And it is also the house of everyday work. So here you can see the marketplace where we interact with all kinds of people with different negotiations and businesses and our everyday schedule. This has a lot to do with our everyday schedule. And of course, it does have a lot to do with pets. So sometimes if there's an affliction in the sixth house, something could be happening with a pet. There could be some disruption to work, that sort of thing. Okay, everybody thinks of the seventh house as the house of partnerships and marriage. And in truth, that is one of the key things that happens in this Libra driven house. But what a lot of people don't know is it's also the house of open enemies. And so it can be either a love or hate kind of house, but it usually has to do with very serious partnerships. So quite often it is the house where love partners will show up. And between my husband and I, our Venuses are both either in the fifth or seventh house. And there's nodal connections too. So there's a very strong tie there, right? But it does have to do with, long-term commitments. And I have seen in people's charts when I've done them, when they're dating someone new, the sun is passing through their chart, their partner's sun. So a male energy in the house of partnerships. A lot of times when people get married, whether they realize it or not, often it's happening when there's an eclipse in the seventh house. Now, you can also find people's planets in your seventh house, and that can be an enemy. If you have somebody's moon fall into your seventh house, that could be somebody who's being very deceptive, who's hiding things, who is stealthy and doing things underhandedly behind the scenes, pretending to be one thing, and in reality, they're completely something else. And so it does pay to look at that and consider that that placement could be a friend or a foe. And what planet is it that's impacting, right? And so, of course, it has a lot to do with, the emotions of what's going on. How much is hidden? How much is being brought to light with a more full moon? And where do you fall in between? But certainly in the seventh house, emotions have much to do with how that relationship is going to go. Okay, I do love the eighth house. The eighth house is considered a mystery house, and it deals with so many really potent things. Not only mysteries behind the veil, but things like life, birth, death, sex, taxes, huge emotional divides that people face in their life, being able to overcome really difficult circumstances and rise like a phoenix from the ashes. Why? Because it's ruled by Scorpio, and that is related to Pluto, and Pluto very much has that powerful ability for transformation if we allow it to happen. But a lot of very wild and chaotic things can happen in the eighth house. It's a loaded house. It is also a house of mysteries. It can also be a house of healing. And again, that depends also on how you're able to tap into the energies of the universe. If you can work on your chakra system to help heal whatever part of your life is being harmed at the time, how you can repair holes basically in your auric shield. If you have really terrible things happen to you, I think we do incur holes that allow negative energies to come in and attach. And when you're really down and out, sometimes you don't know or care, and you're not protected. But if you want to heal and overcome and rise like a phoenix, well, then you have to repair that auric shield. And one of the best ways to do that is with yoga and chanting, and to ask your divine creator to help you to draw on angelic white light to protect you from evil forces in the universe, right? So that's part of the eighth house. The eighth house has much also to do with lust, and sexual matters and emotions, very powerful emotions. Like a lot of people who end up being murderers have planets in the eighth house. And you can see, if something like that's afoot, there's turmoil in the emotions. And so you need to watch for that. And here you can see this woman also has fire. And it's like she realizes that her emotions are kind of out of control. And in this case, she's trying to transform that by cooling the flames, right? And trying to, distill that down so that what she's going through is more tolerable and settled. But that's the kind of stuff that happens in the eighth house. Eighth house, if you have a lot of placements, can also lead to some psychic abilities, whatever those are. And most certainly, it has everything to do with your ability to get through the dark night of the soul, which we all go through probably a couple times in our lives, and it comes down to, how do you look at things? Is it just a complete barren forest? You have no resources to draw on, or are you able to tap in to the divine and pray, pull on energy from God, and find a way to heal and to overcome, just terrible things in your life? And that's why it's a great psychological divide. And can you make it over to the other side? I would say a lot of times when people pass, you will see planets lining up in the eighth house. Often on death charts, you will see that. Not always, but sometimes. Okay, now we have the ninth house, which is naturally ruled by Sagittarius. But again, it all depends on your date of birth. So you're going to probably have some other, element in there or sign in there. But it has to do with long-term travel, like overseas travel. It has everything to do with your philosophy on life. Like, what are your religious or belief systems going to be revolved around, right? So, here we have the seeing eye of God, the Father, Son, Holy Ghost, the birthing of the planet. Not only is this a beautiful thing, but it can also be a sad thing, because there's a separation from us and the divine. We have to come down here on this big wheel of life to learn lessons. But it can represent many different paths to God. And also higher education, legal things, publishing has a lot to do with the ninth house. And of course, since it's ruled by Sagittarius, Sagittarius is always about seeking the truth. And I have strong placements in this house, and I have traveled around the world a few times with my backpack. I'm a real person. I don't stay in fancy places. So, straw mattresses, ice cold water, budget traveler kind of stuff. But it has enabled me not only to see some beautiful places, but to understand different philosophies from around the world. And I find great wisdom that people have all over the world that helps them to tap in their own unique fashion to the divine. And also has a lot to do, again, with education, higher education in this case, and journeying. So there can be, with Sagittarius, they're a great fire to explore, to learn, to see new things, to adventure, because Sagittarius has a very strong adventurous spirit wherever it lands in your chart. Now, the 10th house has everything to do with Capricorn. And Capricorn is what's happening right now with Pluto and Capricorn. It has everything to do with systems, with government, with rules, regulations, laws. In the 10th house, it has everything to do with Saturn and how hard you work. And how hard you work, of course, has everything to do with how you end up with a career in your life and how well you do at that career. And so it's the outward standing of your career. But it isn't just a career placement, it's when big changes in your life become visible on the public stage. So sometimes, say, if somebody is gay or whatever, and they've been in the closet, but then now all of a sudden it's out. That will often show up in the 10th house. Or if you switch statuses, like you were married and now you're divorced, that may also show up in the 10th house. It's just big changes in your outward status in the world. But you could expect big promotions or demotions, depending on how well you've been reining in Saturn and using it, when eclipses happen to that 10th house of your professional sphere. And so if you've been putting in the work, and doing the labor and, using your own ideas and energy and whatnot, then you bring in emotional happiness, you bring in the cups, you bring in, good feelings of work hard done. And of course, with Saturn, that requires that you have to draw on your own skills, your own abilities, your own energy, your own effort, your own work in order for good things to happen. That's how the 10th house works. And of course, if you do that, you can have victory. And, it takes a long time. Saturn is a slow moving planet. It isn't like, okay, I worked hard for 2 weeks, now I'm there. No, it wants to see long, hard work over time. And that's how you slowly build yourself up to success in that 10th house. So, all right. And we have Aquarius ruling over the 11th house, which is hopes, dreams, wishes, friends. Sometimes people call it gifts from the king. So in other words, if you've been doing well in your 10th house, by the time planets move into the 11th house, you may receive a gift from a boss, an employer, because you're being rewarded for that hard labor. And it's your opportunity to birth good things in your life, right? Also, since it's opposite the 5th house, the creative projects that you put forth can blossom and come to fruition once they hit the 11th house. So you put in the work in the 5th, it pops out in the 11th. And it's how well we pour things in, what sort of, magical gifts we can get from the universe, and what kind of friendships do we draw in. And just in general, what kind of energy are we putting into our friendships and the people around us, and also even society. So it has a lot to do with society at large, things that we would like to see in society. Are we adding to society, or are we drawing energy from everybody else? And, not really putting our best foot forward, but basically living in the matrix, kind of like a zombie, and trying to suck everybody else dry. So if you've been doing good things come out in the 11th. If you haven't, well, then it's like you're chasing ghosts and spirits, because rather than working off of your own hard efforts, you're trying to basically suck in the energy and life force of others. And of course, that's not a good thing in the universe. Okay, the 12th house, Pisces. Again, a mystery house, 4th, 8th, and 12th house. And Pisces has everything to do with our connection to God, with the divine, however you describe that. It has a lot to do with Black culture. Also, it has a lot to do with emotions. It has to do with creativity and daydreaming and things like, artistry. So singers, writers, filmmakers, people who have creative flair. Um, it can also be a house of secret sorrows and self undoing. Now, it doesn't mean just because you have a planet there that that's going to happen, though sometimes that does occur. And by looking at the planet, you can tell what's bringing in the secret sorrows and self undoing. So, for example, if your moon's there, it could be feminine energy or the mother. Or I knew a woman who had Venus there. I actually have known two. And one, she had trouble in love. She had been married 3 times, and each one was a disappointment. Um, Another one, she was very much in love, but her husband fell quite ill. And so hers was a very giving love, um, where she didn't get as much in return, but she gave selflessly. It can also be a place of hospitals, asylums, yoga retreats, places we go to tap in within. It's very much a house of hypnosis and again, a mystery house. And as a mystery house, it is a place that if you want to do healing with hypnosis, you have to face some of the monsters in your life. You have to dig deeply into the things that have brought you to where you are to solve whatever those problems are so that you can transmute the energy. So instead of, the monster having you by the tail, you become powerful because you're able to alchemize the energy. And again, so, places where you go to do that. And so, again, yoga centers, because people use that to transmute energy. Or if you don't do that, sometimes people end up in asylums, right? Because they don't deal with the mental health issues that they have going. And it can at times, of course, drive people mad. But it's really all about transformation, right? The 12th house, like the 4th and the 8th, it's about transformation. So how do you take the murky waters, the emotions that are not good, the mental health issues or secrets, sorrows, self-undoing that drag you underwater? How do you take those and, with the snake energy here, heal and transform? That's what's being called for in the 12th house. And of course, it all depends upon how you use the energies, but recognizing what's there and then making a conscious choice. How do I heal this situation, right? How do I heal the relationship? How do I heal what happened? How do I tap in behind the veil? Again, because Pisces has so much with how we connect with our creator in life. All right, and here's another fun card. So as you combine tarot and astrology, you want to start thinking about the elements of each thing. So every planet is either in earth, air, fire, or water. And so the elemental embrace. So to start to figure out more about yourself, learn about your journey, take a look at your chart. Find out how many planets do you have in the air sign. If you have a lot, you're probably very intellectual. You're probably driven to communicate. You're probably driven to share ideas, right? You want to talk. You want to get together with people. You want to, share stuff. So that's air. If you have a lot of earth in your chart, you're probably going to be very resource oriented or good with dealing with resources, like a banker or a logistics section chief or somebody who can move things from one thing to another, like a supply chain kind of person. You may also be very materialistic or at least appreciate the fine things in life. A lot of Tauruses are like that. If you want chocolate, you want the absolute best chocolate in the world. And it can have also to do with a nice connection with the earth, because Taurus also rules the earth. So it isn't always necessarily just a materialistic thing. If you have a lot of fire in your chart, you're going to be a fiery person. You're going to be full of inspiration and possibly wisdom and gumption and get up and go energy and passion and desire to go after what you want. And, with Aries, it's a very entrepreneurial energy. And you want what you want and you want it now. And that's normal for Aries. With Sagittarius, it's going to be seeking adventure. It's going to be seeking the truth. It's going to be wanting to explore other cultures and knowledge from different places. With Leo, it should be all about developing your creativity, your heart center, your skills and talents so that your heart center and your own creativity can shine out onto the world. So, if you want to learn more about yourself, learn about the elements of the planets in your chart, and then start to learn about the houses in your chart. And then eventually you start to look at how the planets and those different elements are communicating with each other. And yes, it was these very skills that I used to actually solve my own crime, because everything I needed to know was very evident. It was right there. Now, it does take time to get to that point of seeing things. And usually there's 3 or 4 or 5 ways that things can play out. But sometimes the signatures are very strong. Sometimes the energies are very evident. Sometimes there's patterns. And once you develop that trained eye, you can begin to see what things are likely to occur. And of course, I only ever use it for good in the world. That's all astrology was ever meant for, is to do good things in the world, not to, attack a person's house or health or earned income, how to ruin a person. That's a total misuse of a spiritual tool. But it is a great tool to help solve crimes and to help people on their spiritual paths, to learn about themselves, to overcome difficulties, to gain wisdom about what it means to be a spiritual being in a very mundane vehicle that we get around in while we're down here learning. And it's all about that learning journey. All right, on that note, I just want to say thank you and God bless. Everybody have a great Thanksgiving. My heart center is wide open and filled with gratitude to everybody who has been helping me along this very long and difficult path. But as you can tell, I am finally starting to return to myself, more balanced and joyful and harmonious within myself, certainly wiser. And I think maybe for me, the best gift was to learn again how to tap into my inner resources to heal, which I have done twice. So I do have pretty good healing skills. And also a hope and prayer for our country that we can come to a place of peace and resolution for where we are, work together so that we can all get more of what we want, so that no person ever has to go through the atrocities that I've been through. So that, by cheating, somebody could win. Because as it turns out, winning at any cost was really costly. But again, if we can apply wisdom to the situation, find love in our hearts for each other as Americans and our differences, and come to the table to talk, we have the ability to chart a conscious course forward that works for everybody. And that's my greatest hope and wish and desire. All right. God bless. Have a great weekend.